I mean, the whole eagle hunting experience is done on horsebacks. You know, they go riding on the horses with their eagle on the arms, you know, looking pretty sharp, looking cool, looking like some, you know, badass guys. But it's just a cool picture to look at. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and for those of you who are new, well, hello, my name is Sarah Kahunde, and I just like to talk about anything culture, lifestyle, history, motivational videos. I do all of that. Now, if you're new, kindly hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to get more updates about my newly updated videos. Today, you guys, I'd like to talk to you about the eagle hunters of Mongolia and Kazakhstan. Now, what you need to know is that eagle hunting has been a practice that has been in place for the longest of time, dating back to 2500 BC. Now, how does that act happen? How do eagle hunters actually do their thing? That is the question that should be pondering over your head. Well, think no more. I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. But first of all, hit the subscribe button, guys. Anyway, so the hunter must catch the bird, well, the young eagle, you call it the chick, when it's still very young. They usually go to the high cliff and get the birds, and then they tame them to be fantastic hunters. And when they get them, they have to nurture them, they sing to them, they talk to them, to the point that the eagle is just familiar with the owner's voice. I mean, they are the only ones actually that are allowed to feed the eagle, to feed the bird, so the bird gets accustomed to the owner. It creates a strong bond, and often you find the eagle owners saying that when the bird is feeling sad, they tend to feel sad. When the bird is happy, they are happy. But the real question is it really that easy to capture an eagle? And let's not forget, an eagle weighs about 10 to 12 kilograms. They are pretty heavy, yo. So is it that easy to just get an eagle? I mean, what are the odds you'll just go to a cliff and just find a young eagle laying there and be like, oh, little birdie, let me take you home, be mine? It doesn't work like that. So let me give you the real deal. This is what happens. I mean, if you read about what the eagle hunters tell you, it's not an easy experience. Now, this is what happens. First of all, when you go up to the mountains, you have to go all up to the mountains because that's where the eagles like to build their nests. So when you go up there, okay, one of the options is, yes, you can go and take a chick, a young eagle from the nest and take it, but it's not that easy, because in most cases, you find an adult eagle, and when it finds you in its nest, it's not a pretty nice experience because they're so heavy, and they have, I think they call them crooks or claws. Yes, they can push you off the cliff by, you know, poking on you and pushing you with their claws and scratching you. They can easily throw you off the cliff. So it's not the best idea, although it is an idea, or it is something that some people do when they're trying to capture the bird, but it is a dangerous one because when they get you, it's not a nice experience. I'm telling you, it's like the worst. So the question is, so what other experience do they use to grab the eagle if that one is so dangerous? Well, guess what? The other one is that they use a bait. They get the meat, they go where the eagles are, and then they put meat as a bait. They get the already tamed eagle to act like a decoy, so the tamed eagle is hanging around the meat like, what's up? So the other eagles, you know, they're sort of attracted to the meat, so they come. So when they come, the eagle hunter is nearby with the net and all of that, so they just drop it and then they capture the eagle. So when they capture the eagle, they take it to their homes and they tend to tie it with a rope around the legs or the toe area. So the bird, of course, will be attempting to escape, flying up and down until it gets tired. And when it finally gets tired, then it will literally just feed out of the eagle hunter's hand. It will eat whatever the hunter gives it. So they do that for a long period of time, to the point that the eagle gets attached to the hunter. And oh, I think I forgot to mention, for that to happen, they usually get the adult eagles because they're already experienced hunters, so they're not starting from scratch as it would be the case for the chicks. And by the way, taming the chicks to be advanced hunters is not that easy. It's very challenging. So most of the eagle hunters prefer to get the adult eagles, especially the female eagles, because they tend to become, when they're growing, they become big and so powerful and mighty. And they usually go for the golden eagle because it's so common in Mongolia and Altai mountains. So they tend to go for the golden eagle. It's the preferred one because it is common. So like I was saying earlier, so the eagle becomes accustomed to the owner, so it becomes loyal to the hunter. It's like, I don't know, I think they get amnesia because they tend to forget about their past lives. You know, the eagles live in the wild, but when they are captured and they're tamed, they tend to forget about the wild. They become loyal to their new owner. So how does the hunt happen? Because remember I said they're called eagle hunters, and the main reason why they do eagle hunting is because they go with the eagles and they help in the hunting experience. Now, what you guys need to know is that hunting takes place during winter. They tend to hunt things like wolves and foxes and rabbits, and most of these animals tend to come out in winter, and that's when these hunters tend to go out with the eagles. So now this is what usually happens. So when they, just like any other, I think just like any other organization, you have the new guys and then the oriented. And how do you orient new people into an organization? By getting the experienced people to talk to you, to tell you how things are done. Or maybe you can just sit and observe. It's one of the ways of absorbing information. So the same is for these eagles. So when the eagle hunter goes hunting, they take the experienced eagle, the tamed eagle. They take along with them the tamed, experienced eagle and this newly captured eagle to the hunting ground. I was about to say battlefield, but it's not a battlefield. But you can say a battlefield because it is some sort of a battle, like you're about to find out in a minute. So anyway, so they go out and they go to the top of the mountains, and then you see eagles tend to have a very sharp eyesight, better than yours. Google it. Eagles and their eyesight is out of this world. It's beyond, off the roof. Their eyesight is so sharp. So they go to the peak of the mountain or the tip of the cliff, and then the eagle then observe the environment, and then it will tend to check out its prey, and when it spots its prey, it goes on to hunt the prey. And remember, an eagle is already heavy, like I said, weighing about 10 to 12 kilograms, so it will to pounce on the rabbit or the fox or whatever it might be, and in the process, when it's struggling to keep the prey down, then the hunter will make its way to the prey and then just complete the kill. And then they usually give the lungs to the eagle as a sign of respect, like, woohoo, you did good. He is your prized possession, the lungs. And of course the eagles tend to love them. But here's the real thing though, if you guys are planning on doing that, you should have some accessories with you. You see, because it happens in the winter, of course you need to have a heavy jacket to protect yourself. Your health is important. You can't be out in the winter with light clothes like this. You need to have a jacket. So the Mongolians or the Kazakhs, the way they do it is that they have some pretty thick leather gloves. They put them on because when they are carrying the eagles on their arms, the eagles tend to have very long, sharp claws, so they can easily scratch you. So that's why they put on those very long, thick leather gloves to protect their arms, because they can easily get scratched and they tend to climb all over, so they have to put on those very heavy clothing to protect themselves. And of course, that is the life that the Mongolians or the Kazakhs live. The whole eagle hunting experience is done on horsebacks. They go riding on the horses with their eagle on the arms, looking pretty sharp, looking cool, looking like some, badass guys. But it's just a cool picture to look at. So usually how they do it, that the fathers tend to go with their sons, and then they train the sons how to do it. They pass on the experience to the sons, and it's very honorable to them when they're training their young kids to keep the culture, to keep the practice going. When they do that, they feel so much pride because they know they're passing on something valuable to a younger generation that will later on pass it on to another generation, and that's how cultures tend to live on. But sadly, that was not the case back in the day in Kazakhstan because of the communist parties that came in to control the whole country. Most of the Kazakhs migrated to Mongolia, and most of them reside in a place called Olgi. That's where you find the remaining ego hunters. They tend to keep on the culture, because when they were in Kazakhstan during the communist regime, that practice was suppressed. So now when they came all the way to Mongolia, they revived their culture. It's still on. Most of the Mongolians or the Kazakhs that are living in Mongolia, they have harsh living conditions, especially in the mountain areas. Life there is really harsh. It's really cold out there. They have little access to good education system, health systems. Everything is hard. And remember, the world is evolving, the world is developing. We're no longer living in the ancient times. So some of these practices, of course, are being washed away. They're hard to maintain, because you find, just like any other culture, people in the village want the best for their kids. The parents want the best for their kids, so they tend to send their kids all the way to the city to go and study, have better jobs, have better lives than them. And what do you think will happen? Of course, they'll get jobs and live in the city, and they'll be done with the lifestyle, with the culture of the ancient Mongolians, of the ancient Kazakhs. I mean, they don't be living in the village to take care of the egos and carrying on the whole culture of ego hunting, because they wouldn't have the time. They'll be in the city, and taming an ego takes time. Training it how to hunt takes time, and you need the right environment, and you can't do that in the city filled with industrialization, filled with God knows what. You know what's going on. So it's hard, and that's why the culture is tending to die down slowly. But I really hope the remaining practicing ego hunters can keep on the culture, produce more kids, push it on, and let it keep on moving. I think it's a very amazing thing. And by the way, most of them tend to keep the egos for about 10 years, 8 years, and then they let them go to the wild. They don't keep them forever, although they get so attached. These guys keep these egos as their kids. I mean, they love them like their kids, and they're emotionally invested in their lives. Even when the egos are flying high in the sky, you know, they're soaring high, and they see their master from 1 kilometer away, they totally respond. If that guy just whispers, man, you see that ego flying down like a problem, like, hey master, I think in its little brain it's like, I can't wait to see you coming down. It's been a long time. I mean, that is how attached the ego and the master are. And I honestly think it's very fascinating to me, and it is a source of tourist attraction. Most people go there during winter time to look at the ego hunting festivals that they usually have, or even just to take pics of the ego hunters in action. I mean, it's a pretty cool sight. It's not every day that you see egos hovering over somebody's shoulder and they go hunting, and you just say, hey buddy, let's go, and I just come, let's go Michael, let's go Jennifer. I mean, you don't see that every day. So of course, when you see it, it's a pretty cool sight. And I, for one, I'm a diehard for such sites, I'm telling you. Anyway, I guess I'm just a fanatic for different cultures. I like to know what different cultures do, appreciate people differently, and break the barrier of beauty standards that have been set in place. And I'll keep repeating myself, beauty standards are different. Do not judge people by your own beauty standards, because if I was to judge you by our own beauty standards, you wouldn't even reach 10. That's how serious it is. So my message to you, my message to the world is, learn about people's cultures, appreciate people for who they are, do not try to change them. And if you think maybe you have your culture and you find it barbaric and you have strong reasons not to do whatever culture norm they're telling you to do, hey, that's your right. You do you. Nobody should force you to do something that you don't want. I know that some cultures that are very dangerous and barbaric norms, so if you want to do away with that, just do away with it. But other than that, guys, I just want to tell you guys about the ego hunters and how fascinating the whole experience is. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, get more updates about my newly updated videos, and check out the rest of the content as well. Yeah, so see you guys, bye.